Hello and welcome to The Round So Far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Kate McCarthy. Kate, it's great to have you back. Let's start at the MCG, where the big story comes around Stephen May and this incident involving Francis Evans. Francis Evans subbed out with a concussion. The question the match review is going to have to ask themselves on Sunday is, did he contest this situation in an unreasonable manner? Because I think if he did, he's going straight to the tribunal and he's looking at 4+ weeks.
Yeah, I think he's going straight to the tribunal, Riley. I think what we see now in footy, acts like this, the way that you approach the football and the duty of care that you have to place on your opponent, I don't think Stephen May's probably exercised that duty of care in that contest there. You see, he sort of does beeline the ball. Yes, it's in play, but I don't think he approaches the ball or the player with the caution that he needs to in this day and age in football, and I think that one will be sent straight to the tribunal, in my opinion. Yeah,
I think there's a split second there where he probably could slow himself down. I think that's probably the argument that the match review will make. But if it does go to the tribunal, he could be looking at his season being over 5 games remaining in their campaign. As we mentioned, you're looking at automatically 4+, I think, if it does go to the tribunal, if he is found guilty. So a watch on Stephen May early next week. Just a note, though, Francis Evans has been in and out of this Carlton side for quite some time throughout the year. That was an incredibly brave act from him, running directly at the football, probably knowing that he was going to get caught as well.
Yeah, it certainly was. And his ability to wear whatever impact was coming his way, unfortunately for him, he's ended up with a concussion, which obviously will sideline him now for at least the 12-day protocol. But yeah, it was a brave act, and Michael Voss spoke about it post-game, that it was body on the line sort of thing, and unfortunately he wore the consequences, but it was an important time for their team, so really lauded him in the fact that he did not shirk away from the contest and earned himself the free kick from there.
Lost a tooth and probably broke his nose in that incident as well, did Francis Evans. It came amid a fourth quarter or a second half where Carlton just got over the line against the Demons by 8 points. Remarkably, Kate, this was the 8th time in the last 11 meetings between these two sides where the final margin has been 8 points or fewer.
Yeah, these two seem to have clashes that go right down to the wire. So was some big moments in the fourth quarter, and Carlton were able to wrestle back momentum multiple times throughout it. And Cozzy Pickett, he was electric. He ended up kicking 5 goals. That's his 6th game now this season that he's kicked 3 or more goals. So he is really trying to lift that Melbourne Football Club. A beautiful hanger here from Tom de Koning, who was probably a little bit better than we've seen the last few weeks. There's been questions about his form and his ability to continue to show up. And Charlie Curnow, he'd gone goalless in the 4 games before this one, but ended up kicking 3, including that very important goal in the 4th term.
That was the match winner. Melbourne had narrowed the margin to 2 points before that Charlie Curnow goal. An unsung hero for Carlton came in the form of Ashton Moyer. 4 goals, a career-high 4 goals. He can kick him with both feet. He kicks this one with his right, but then 3 brilliant set shots when the situation required to kick him on his left. He did that. Yeah,
he can genuinely kick with both legs, and a set shot that sort of was 45-50 out on the left as well. So he had 11 disposals, 4 marks, 7 score involvements, and as I said, Riley, he had the 4 goals to go with it. Only his 6th game of footy, and he's only kicked 3 goals in total in his career up until this point. So it was a great game. He showed a hell of a lot of athleticism, which he has the last few weeks, but this was the game where it really came together and he was able to consistently hit the scoreboard.
Let's get down to Tasmania, where the Hawks got over the line against Port Adelaide. Remarkably, this game scores were level going into the second half before Hawthorn kicked 7 of the final 8 goals of the match.
And this here, just some really clever skills on display from Jack Ginnivan in very trying conditions. A lot of players would be happy to concede that one to go out of bounds, but their ability to draw the Port Adelaide players, get out the back of them and finish. But it was a very tough afternoon down there at UTAS. This is a great goal from Bailey McDonald. That's his first goal in league footy.
It would
have been a good enough goal in the drive, but add in the conditions that we were dealing with, and it was a bit of a soccer celebration, run away from your players, not getting around them. But Jarman Impey as well, he spent the 4th term in the forward line, kicked 3 goals as well. There's nothing more frustrating as a forward as when a defender comes down and kicks 3 late in the game and shows you how it's done. But it was a good performance from the Hawks. Obviously an undermanned Port Adelaide side, missing Connor Rozee, Jason Horne-Francis, but the Hawks good enough to get it done.
We know the history between Ken Hinkley and Jack Ginnivan. Well, it reared its head again. Here's Ken Hinkley on Jack Ginnivan's infamous celebration.
Paybacks, I was going to say something else then, wasn't I? Paybacks, deserved, you know. Look, I have no problems with it, and I'm okay with it. I think it's good for the game, the theatre of the game, and good on Jack. I mean, brave enough to go out there and play the way he played and do what he needed to do, and Hawthorn themselves as a club. I won't be one that sits here and be anything but acknowledge that it was my turn today.
A lot of people in the game have a lot of time for Ken Hinkley. I think that's why his humility in those type of moments. He took the mick out of himself earlier this year when everyone was getting around him and doing it in the crowd on gather round against that game against Hawthorn. Everyone was giving it back to him there. He took it very well. He's a good sport, and I think that's why he's getting a lot of fans right the way through this season. He's last in charge of Port Adelaide now as he enters his last 5 weeks.
Yeah, he certainly is, and I love it from Giddy in a way that was done with respect. It was an entertaining way to do it.
It was a muted aeroplane
Absolutely was, and you know what we say, Riley, nothing beats a Jet 2 holiday, so potentially it was a bit of an homage to that as well. But I loved how it played out. We love the theatre of it, and I love how both people on the ends of it received it as well. Yeah,
hopefully as well they give him a send-off next week. The final showdown of Ken Hinkley's Port Adelaide career next Saturday night against the Crows. The conditions down in Tassie, they were classic Tassie conditions. I think this is why the AFL wants a roof on this new Tasmanian stadium if it's built, because right throughout, they couldn't throw the ball in. It was going that far one direction. People were kicking it in all certain aspects of the game, and they couldn't kick it that far. We'll see Jack Inovan here. He's got a shot, I think, 20 or 30 metres out, but he knows he won't make the distance, so he tries to pass it off because he knows he won't get it there. And the ball ends up going about 30 metres behind him. So awful conditions down there. That's why we need a roof in Tassie.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think if you couple this and what we're seeing here, yes, the rain's one thing, but the wind. It's the wind on top of that makes it very, very difficult. And at times it was a cross breeze. Nothing affects your football more than a wind that isn't going end to end. It's going across. It affects your ball drop. Add that in with the rain, and it just made for pretty difficult viewing at times because of the conditions. And you also add that into the Friday night that we saw Hawthorn take on Adelaide, and very difficult conditions there. I think if you're sort of looking at those two situations isolated, that is exactly why we need a roof on the stadium in Tasmania.
Let's get to Friday night footy, where Brisbane just got the job done against the Western Bulldogs with some pivotal moments in the final quarter. You want to break it down because Riley West kicked a goal to get the margin back within a kick, but then Will Ashcroft managed to find some space and kick the sealer.
Yeah, he certainly did. And this was the mark, and this is the build-up to the mark. So Brisbane love using Calamachi as the player that rolls behind the footy. So we're going to have a look at it here. He goes down at the stoppage, and really a good awareness from Joel Frazier to go. But he doesn't just equalise. He actually challenges Archie. Okay, are you going to sit there and stay as a +1, or are you going to be accountable to me? Which then opens up the space. Really nice space. That's what you want as a forward late in the game. You want space because quick kicks like this come out of the pack. Riley West reads it best, kicks a goal. Throughout the entire game, though, it was the Lions' ability to hold balance around stoppage and clearance that really got them on level pegging, and that's exactly what Will Ashcroft did here. He played that defensive sweeper role at so many of these forward 50 stoppages. He just holds his ground. That ball's still in contest, hasn't been won or lost, sees that the Lions win it. Yes, you could argue he's taking a bet either way, but most of the favour of that stoppage is going to the Lions. He holds his space, takes this mark, and really clever from him as well, takes his full 30. He did look for another option to pass that off as well, knowing that there wasn't a whole lot of time left on the clock. Nothing popped up. He ends up slotting the goal anyway and kicking the match winner.
It's great vision there from you, Kate, behind the goals. Will Ashcroft and Levi Ashcroft, fantastic all night. So Will finishes with 26 disposals and 3 goals. Levi has 18 disposals and 2 goals. The talent's still to come into this Brisbane side. Dan Annable is probably a top 5 pick. Will be coming through their academy system later this year in the draft as well. But these two boys turned it on.
Yeah, it was probably the best game we've seen from Levi, who's been consistent all year, but just had the scoreboard impact, the ability to run goal square to goal square, as he's been doing, playing in a position that is absolutely not his favoured position. He's an inside mid. He's come into this team as an inside mid. He knows there's no opportunity there for him, given the firepower that they have through the midfield for the Lions. And one of those players that's taking that spot is his brother, but the two of them put on a very, very good performance on Friday night. And yeah, I think they're just going to they are going from strength to strength, especially Levi. And I think it's been a bit of conversation around Rising Star. I think he kind of stamped his authority on that. We've got Dan Curtin coming hard from the Adelaide Crows, so over to him on Sunday to see what he can do.
He's gone under the radar a bit, Levi Ashcroft, isn't he? All right, we've spoken about this time and time again throughout the season, just how much the Western Bulldogs are getting hurt through the middle of the ground. Let's have a look at Kate's launch zone to see exactly how it's happening.
Yeah, this one's a bit twofold. First of all, the improvement and the willingness to back themselves with the ball in hand. That is beautiful kick from Dane Zorko. But this just highlights when you're playing a zone, those 4 players are too close together if you're playing a zone defence. So one player out of the spot that they need to be when you're playing a full team zone defence really hurts you. Again, this one, the Lions' ability to just will the ball forward, to keep it in motion. Look at the bees to a honeypot from the Western Bulldogs there, and you look at the maroon jumpers running in waves. That's what's getting on top of the Bulldogs. Their ability to just collapse at times, not hold that space, not hold the zone. Yes, the first kick from Zorko was great, and this second kick from Hugh McCluggage is arguably better. But have a look, all pointing, yes, they're getting structured up, but that ability to just shift, the three players for the Bulldogs there, way too close together. Then they get out the back. As I said before, 1-2 players out of their spot in a zone, it absolutely cripples the whole team and makes it really easy to concede goals like this. And it was something they were focusing on through the week. Bevo was really open in saying that they were leaking way too many goals from turnover. They leaked -47, was the differential last week against the Crows. Well, it was -35 again against the Lions. So it's that defensive transition and giving up goals like that that is keeping the Bulldogs from their potential in this season.
And Luke Beveridge spoke about it after the game as well and said we got hurt too many times through the middle of the ground. Are we falling into the same trap with the Western Bulldogs? Because this is the last 7 seasons now where they've finished between 5th and 9th in every single one of those seasons. It's a massive sample size now. They're out of the 8 again, 5 games remaining in their season. They risk not playing finals. This side with Marcus Bontempelli, Tom Liberatore, Ed Richards, Sam Darcy, Aaron Norton, the list goes on. They're too talented not to be playing finals. Yeah,
I think the point that I want to make is they've got 5 of the top 20 players in the competition, 5 of which you named just then. The question for me has always been their defence. So their key defender at the moment is Rory Lobb. Liam Jones obviously brought back into the side for the game against Brisbane. I argue that should have been done 2 weeks ago. They played North Melbourne. Liam Jones hasn't been playing AFL footy for a while now. That was the perfect game to get him back in, to then take on the Crows, where they have the 3-headed monster. We know how damaging they were against them, and then work into this back half of the season. But they're struggling defensively. It's their defensive stocks that are really not, I guess, able to take care of the opposition. And yes, they have potency in attack, but it's their defence that's really letting them down. And it's been letting them down for years now. So they haven't gone out and recruited key defenders. They haven't been able to get those big fish across. And their key defender at the moment is a failed forward that's gone back there and done a very good job, don't get me wrong. But it's very hard to stop teams with the attacking prowess of the Crows, the Lions, when you don't have those key defensive stocks.
Completely agree with you there, Kate. All right, well, the AAMI Classic Clangers series is back once again. Let's stay at the Gabba almost 20 years ago with this moment involving Mel Michael.
I got the ball, a handball from Michael Voss, and from about 20 metres out, I absolutely blasted it for one of the most spectacular points you'll ever see in AFL history.
I think that was called conceding it behind and just being on the safe side, man.
One of the moments that you forget that you could actually rush behinds like that. I think Mel Michael, Joel Bowden and Alistair Clarkson with Hawthorn's grand final antics in 2008 are the reason why you can't do that anymore. So the AAMI Classic Clangers series is back. Let's get to the SCG now. That's where we find our Saturday star. It was Isaac Heeney. What a fantastic performance from the gun Swan against North Melbourne. 34 disposals, 13 clearances, 5 goals. This is an all-timer from Isaac Heeney.
Oh, it is an all-timer because he is the first player ever recorded to have 5 goals and more than 12 clearances on record. He's had some very impressive games in his career, Isaac Heeney. We think back to the start of last year and how he was the Brownlow favourite for the first 6 or 7 rounds. Well, this evening or this afternoon was his highest rated game ever. He was everywhere. He's just showing how important Errol Goulden and the likes coming back into this team really allow him to play his best footy. He was trying to do so much at the start of the season, but we're finally getting to see the best of Isaac Heeney in 2025, and this was one of his best individual performances in his career.
It certainly was. So he kicked 5 goals for the afternoon. That's a career high, or equals a career high for him. I think he wanted it outright though, because he kicked his 5th, then he was taken from the field. I'm not sure he was too happy with the coaching staff. So he waves off Dean Cox there and says, "What are you doing?" And I reckon he's within reason here.
He says, "I just want to sit in the forward line and try and kick my 6th. Have some sense of theatre. I want to kick 6 goals, but it was his rotation. I don't mind it from Coxie. There would be nothing worse than him going out and getting a soft tissue or something happening when you've tried to push through for his rotation, but it would have been nice to get him out there and kick 6.
It's only fair if it's his time to come off, it's his time to come off. All right, Kate, I want to stress, This is not your ladder predictor,
it's
but
not.
you have done a scenario here where Sydney wins out and you still don't think they can make the 8.
Yeah, wanted to crunch some numbers and see, right, is there a way that Sydney can make the 8? We know mathematically, the words mathematically and ramifications at this time of year are used far too much for my liking, but mathematically, if they were to win every game from here on in, they are on 56 points, which, as we can see, is equal with these these 3 other teams here. The thing that is going to cost them, though, is their percentage. So their current percentage is 96%. The teams that are above them all have far greater than that. Fremantle, who we've got in 9th, not on the ladder predictor, but in this scenario, have a percentage of 109. That is a hell of a lot of ground to make up. Yeah. So I think they've definitely left their run too late. I don't think they can get inside the top 8 purely on percentage. We see if they win every single one of their games on the run home, they can sit on the level with points, but I don't see them making the top 8 with their percentage.
One way they could boost their percentage is when they play West Coast, because West Coast took on Richmond. It was a winnable game for them tonight. They've won 1 game all year, and they just couldn't get it done because Richmond absolutely blew them out of the water in the 3rd quarter. They kicked 8 goals 4 to 1 goal 2 in that 3rd term. It completely took the game away from the Eagles. It was their highest score of the season for the Tigers, and the first time they've cracked 100 since round 23. 2023.
Yeah, they dominated the outside game in this whole 3rd quarter, so plus 21 uncontested possession, plus 12 handball receives. They completely ran the West Coast Eagles off their feet in the 3rd term, resulting in those 8 goals to 1. So their ability to just break open, get the game on their terms and outrun and outwork the West Coast Eagles was on full display in that 3rd quarter.
As was Maurice Rioli in the first half, because he was everywhere. This might be the best chase down tackle we've ever seen in the AFL, because as you mentioned live, you picked this up live, you said he's coming from nowhere here. He ran from about 30 metres close to goal.
He did. He came from the clouds, but there's nothing that you love more as a small forward when a player's running towards goal and thinking that they have either an open shot or a chase down, an opportunity to hit out a forward, and then you get that, or you do the full body smother like we saw here. That's his 3rd effort in the chain. And then the ability to not blaze away from that position. Your adrenaline's pumping. You've had an elite smother. You know you're playing really good footy. But to just square that up and be really unselfish in that situation is something that impressed me the most out of all of those clips, because you have it. Your heart's racing, you're going, you think you're going to cover yourself in glory, and then you miss a guy that's open in the goal square. But well done to Maurice Rioli. He's had a stint in the VFL, worked on and getting his engine back up and running and playing through the midfield there, and it has paid off for him, because efforts like that really, really impress me. Yeah,
you might see those VFL numbers in the bottom corner of your screen there. So Richmond, about 2 months ago, put him back into the VFL and said, you're going to play predominantly through the midfield throughout that stretch, and he had a really good month-long period in the VFL playing as a midfielder, and he's come back into this side and had a real impact over the last couple of weeks. So full credit to Maurice Rioli. Is this luck or is this goal of the year? Because Liam Ryan has certainly kicked a contender tonight. Have a look at this. Firstly, it's a great bit of skill because that ball's still going through the goals and he barely got control of it before he snapped it through from the boundary line. Did get the lucky bounce though, but this was absolutely class.
He got a bounce that we're probably likened to see at the Wacker, not at Optus Stadium. He's bowled the bouncer, but the ability, as you said, Riley, he hardly had control of the footy, so hardly takes it, gets it from hand to foot that quickly, slots it. I think it is a huge contender for goal of the year. Obviously gets a very kind bounce, but the skill execution in that is top shelf. It
was a rare highlight for West Coast on Saturday night. All right, let's get to our AAMI clangers now. Kate, you wanted this one put in from Tassie. Talk us through it.
Oh, this is great. We've all seen the Coldplay concert, and we've got Mr. and Mrs. Hawke, or maybe not Mr. and Mrs. Hawke, acting this one out. And I absolutely love this from Hawthorn. Very topical, very funny. And then we've also got something that's probably not as funny if you're an Essendon fan, but a young fan in the crowd thinking I might get my debut tonight. But unfortunately for that young man, he didn't know that Dustin Fletcher was actually running around at quarter time trying to slot a few goals for, I think, raising some money. He probably would have got the call up before that young man. So
let's stay at Marvel Stadium, Thursday night footy, where the Giants got the job done against Essendon. And it was the former Bomber in Jake Stringer who was fantastic right the way throughout this. Now have a look at this. The Jake Stringer of old might have just gone straight for goal here, but I think it says something about his attitude to the Giants. Handballs it off, gets a teammate involved. They're 4 goals up at that stage, but he was fantastic. 18 disposals, 3 goals, and he's starting to get some spring back in his step. We saw him take a couple of big marks in this one. He's looking lively again. He's looking like the Jake Stringer of old.
Yeah, we know he's playing his best footy when he's dynamic and when he's powerful. He's very hard to tackle. And then this is huge amount of power from him to get up, take the hanger on his good mate. I think he went around to see him the next day as well to catch up with him and tell him all about it. Said it's going to be the screensaver on his phone as well for the next little bit. But no, it was great from Jake Stringer. It had Jake Stringer revenge game written all over it, didn't it? And he absolutely delivered.
The Giants are starting to click into gear now. They tend to in the second half of the season. This was a club record 5th straight game now where they've scored 100 points or more. This Orange Tsunami's back. They're transitioning the ball really well from their defensive half. And their forward line is structured up so well at the moment. They've found the perfect mix. So in that 5-game stretch, Cadman's got 18, Stringer's got 10, Callum Brown's got 9, Toby Green's got 9, Jesse Hogan's got 7, Jake McCarthy's got 6. They're really sort of splitting it evenly across them.
Yeah, they are, and they're getting their turnover game going. We know that the Orange Tsunami loves starting from the point of generating a turnover and then going back at the opposition, and that's why we're seeing the likes of Cadman, Stringer, even Callum Brown, as you said, start to really hit the scoreboard, because when you got forwards like that at your disposal and you can get the ball in quickly post-turnover, they are a dangerous team when they are able to do that. So, yeah, since round 14, they have been firing, and there's been sort of talk of who's the informed team of the competition. You'd be hard-pressed to look past the Orange Tsunami.
Well, they're top of the form ladder since round 14. All right, let's get to the rest of the round now, because some cracking games coming up on Saturday. Geelong versus St Kilda at GMHBA Stadium, but then Collingwood and Fremantle at the MCG. That's a game with finals repercussions, and I think the game of the round is in the Sunday twilight spot, Adelaide against Gold Coast.
Yeah, well, we know last time those two teams played up at the Gold Coast, so this one is at Adelaide Oval, went down by a point, the Gold Coast Suns, so they've never won at the Adelaide Oval either in their history, the Gold Coast Suns, so that'll be one that they're looking to tick off, or at least be super competitive in. And the game at the G, Fremantle, this is a huge opportunity for them, up against the Pies, who are looking to bounce back, but Fremantle to get a win at this time of the season, not only over the Pies, but at the MCG, where you need to win if you want to win the ultimate prize. Massive game and huge amount on the line for Fremantle to prove that they are worthy.
Completely agree. 2 massive games with finals implications. Kate, believe me when I say it is great to have you back on the show. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week on The Round So Far.